Salutations. Welcome to Oxyword. I am your host, Joel Wilborn. In this video, we're going to be hearing from a young man who was incarcerated at a very young age. He was a teenager. And he shows what it's like to take advantage of the resources that's available within the prison system, how he will use the justice system to his advantage. And despite all the odds that's against him, he remains positive, and he has some very good advice for those who are probably heading toward a life of crime. And it goes to show that the community can really help make a difference. So hopefully you'll be able to learn something from this video or share it with others, because you know we need to share our knowledge, and we certainly need to work together to get a better world to live in. So here we go with this phone interview.
Okay, this is Joel Wilborn. I am on the phone with the person who is currently incarcerated, and I'll allow him to introduce himself, and then I will ask a question and let him have the mic. Okay, and
Yes,
yes,
my name is Matthew Durham. I'm an inmate currently incarcerated at Washington Correction Center.
okay. Now you're in prison for after you've been sentenced, and of course there's a lot of news stories and a lot of public opinion about you. So we would like to know, what is it you would like to tell the public that wasn't broadcast at your trial, or that the public really doesn't know about you?
So first off, I want the public to know that I'm sorry for all the pain that my actions caused my victim's family and the friends. The actions that my actions caused my family, my friends, the community, the court system. I understand that that's something that's devastating for everybody, and that's most important to know, that I always take responsibility for that and those, the pain and suffering that caused. What wasn't really broadcast at the time that I was going through court system, and a lot of times it was there blocking that off, was that I was born with a neurological disorder called neurofibromatosis, and it affects your fine motor skills, your cognitive abilities, especially when you're at a young age. Some of the symptoms mirror ADD, so I was put on Ritalin. I was placed on an individualized education program in the second grade, and I struggled throughout school growing up. As I got older and I fell further behind, I'd see my peers, excelling in the simplest things where I couldn't. So I started masking my disabilities through laughter and making a scene, which got me kicked out of class. Even when I could ask for help, the teachers weren't able to do it because of the size of the classrooms, and they couldn't give me all the help that I needed without everybody else falling behind, so I stopped asking. As I got older and I started wanting to look for my place in the world, I found myself in a bad crowd. And at that age, when you're really young, you probably really don't understand how bad some of the people you're hanging around with are, even though I wasn't committing crime with them. They were. And I thought that, hey, just hanging out with them won't get me in trouble. So eventually when I was arrested for an accomplice to murder, I didn't know the murder was going to happen, but I was there. I own that, and I can stop it. So I get sentenced at 17 years old, and they sentenced me to 26 years in prison, 25 years of it with no good time. At my sentencing, the judge just said, well, even though there's people that came to my sentencing and spoke about my issues growing up and how I struggled, and that my younger sister looked out for me as an older sibling. My dad was gone overseas a lot, so he wasn't around to help me, grow as a young man. The judge just said, well, hopefully you'll learn something in prison. You'll be a middle-aged man when you get out. Nothing about my youth or about my neurological conditions or anything. Coming to prison, a lot of people don't know that the prison really doesn't want to. At first, prison doesn't really seem like they want to help you out, especially if you have a long time. So their analogy is, and they might not tell you that, is, hey, you come here, you stay out of our way, we're going to stay out of yours. The least that we want you to do is get your GED. When I first came to prison, if you were over 18 to 21, you really didn't have to go to school, but they tried to ask you to. But as far as college classes and stuff, those weren't available to you. A lot of other classes weren't available to you unless you were really getting in trouble. And then they wanted you to take like stress and anger management or moral recognition therapy, usually if you were in the hole. It was thanks to the organizations like the Black Prisoners Caucus and their Taking Education and Creating History program that I was actually able to take college courses. Now, today I have over 20 college credits with English 101, philosophy, mass communication, bioanthropology. So these are the people who really helped me grow and start understanding what is a person that I have to give back to the community in order to really be a contributing member of society. One thing that I want them to know is the public to know also is I'm dedicated to changing the communities that are hurt by crimes, the crimes that, once that in some kind of way that I played a part of. And reaching back is important. And building that bridge between people who don't know us in prison and the people in prison that don't know them out there. I don't care about, political views or race or economic status. I think that we're not ever really going to be able to change this system until we all really get to know each other and have those difficult conversations, even if you're for hard time for armed crime or hard on crime at all. Just to be able to have that discussion with people to understand their view while they can understand ours and also see that people can change. People like me and people like the men that came before me that helped me change, that I'm able to now do it for the younger generation.
Now, do you feel that prison helped you become a better person right now?
I would say that I don't know if prison exactly helped me. I think prison can help people. I think that there was men in prison at that time that were dedicated to bettering themselves and bettering other men. That helped me become better. I mean, if you come to prison, you think you come to prison at 17 years old, a lot of 17, on the streets at 17 years old, you don't know anything. In the world, you're still a kid, so you can come to prison and go one or two ways. They have a lot of people in here who aren't dedicated to bettering themselves or dedicating others to becoming better. So it's easy to get into that trap. Luckily, I didn't. Luckily, I had people around me that were trying to steer me in the right direction. And so I think that like I said, with the help of organizations like the Black Prisoners Caucus and other people who were setting up their own programs, yes, I think prison helped me in that essence. I don't think that prison was really, for the last 20 years that I've almost been incarcerated for almost 20 years, I don't think that prison was really dedicated on rehabilitation.
Well, what can the public do to help you reintegrate back into society?
I think what the public can do to help me and others integrate into society is to try to listen more to people's issues that brought them to prison. I think that if there's you have to go to the root cause of people's problems to understand them. So it's easy for people to, for even people in prison to say, yeah, we should just stick. Some people deserve to be in prison, which some people, if you do something wrong, you should be punished for it. To how much time, that's, up to argue all the way around the board with certain things. But I think that society at most can do for us is to listen to us and to be able to, like I said, to have that discussion with each other on both sides, to say what they think, what we think, and how can we come to a moral understanding to really help people stop coming to prison altogether,
Now, what do you think we can do to help people to stop going back to prison?
I think to really stop people from coming to prison, it starts with the family. I see a lot of things like with the Big Brothers, Big Sisters program. Why that's a good program, and maybe this is a volunteer, and let's say he takes the little boy to go play video games. The little boy lives in a troubled household. But after he drops that little boy off back at that house, it's still a troubled household. So you're not going to be able to fix the kids' problems all the way until you can fix the parents' problems. So sometimes that's a big thing. Family counseling, even personal counseling for the parents, because sometimes the mom might go through internalized trauma that she's not going to talk about in front of the kids, and the kid doesn't quite understand. And until you fix her issues, she's going to, those issues are going to fall onto the kids. And, and it's the trickle-down effect within society altogether. Some people's issues become society's issues, and then we don't really worry about it until it's too late.
Okay, you were talking about the family as a unit. As you know, a lot of people are raised by single parent households, and sometimes they contribute that to leading to a life of crime. If you're talking to a single mother who has a young man, what kind of advice would you give her to help her to properly give him the attention that he needs so that he won't live a life of crime?
I think really it falls on to just really listening and caring for them. I think at times that a single mom, like I said, they really have to work on their problems. And sometimes they might not admit to us they have issues, they might not have issues. But I think it's very important that they work on their issues to understand what their son's going through, because it goes on to your son. If you're a single mom raising a boy, you know, one example I give is that sometimes single moms, the baby's dad or the kid's dad is in their life, but they're not really part of the family unit like that. So they'll tell the son, like, hey, you remind me of your dad, you remind me of your dad. And then at the other ends, and different times, they'll talk about how much they hate their dad, or their dad's a loser or whatever. And so the kid looks at them like, well, I remind you of my dad, so I must be a loser. That's part of internalized trauma that kid builds up without even realizing it until later on in life, where he's starting to think about himself as a loser, or he's not worth as much, you know?
Yes. And what would you like to do? Let's say you were to get out at the end of your sentence. What would you like to do to help the young folks so that they will understand the life that you went through and choose a different path?
I think that what my main thing to do to help them is listen to them, to tell them my story, to let them know that I'm there for them, not to belittle them or to make them feel worse than they might already feel. I think it's important that you just listen to the young cats that are, I mean, especially in prison. I see them all the time. They come in and they just want someone to listen to them, to understand their struggle. You know, why I might not relate to their struggle the same way that they're going through it, because I'm from a different generation. I'm from a different uh, era per se. Is somebody that older than me might not quite understand. We went through the same things but differently. So how do I understand them? Is just by listening to them, you know, and asking questions.
Okay, and so when you were growing up, I noticed that you were emphasizing listening. Are there some things that you were trying to tell the people in your life that they weren't listening to?
The biggest thing for me started when I was in school. You know, the school programs today are extremely struggling. I look at it, you know, like I was saying, I was on the individual education program, so that means that, you know, they were really supposed to try to give me more attention. The classroom sizes, there's one teacher, they're not able to give the kids that need the attention that they want or that they really need, you know. So for me, asking for help all the time and they're not able to give it to me, I finally just pushed back and came to understanding that maybe it's not for me. So I kind of gave before I realized that I was giving up. And after so much time went by and I'm so far behind, I'm already in that struggle. And I think that today you hear these teachers talk about they need more money. Well, yeah, teachers should get paid a lot, but at the same time, if we pay these teachers more, they're going to be able to excel and learn the things they learn.
Okay, let's say you have an opportunity to sit and talk to a group of high schoolers. And so, in your talk, what would be three things that you'd want to emphasize to these young men that would help them in their life?
The first thing I would tell them is that it's, you know, that to really understand that they're worth a lot more than they ever thought. You know, I mean, that their life's worth a lot more than they ever would think, and that they could do whatever they want in their life. You know, positively. You know, that they don't have to go play sports or do all this to be somebody in life. Like, you know, you could just work a 9 to 5 and, you know, and raise a family, and you're just as valuable as anybody else who does anything. You know, money doesn't make value. The second thing I would tell them is to, you know, to just sit back and think before you do certain things. I know it's hard at a young age because you react faster than you think, but it's important to think. And then the third thing is to really watch your friends. You know, I mean, people who care about you aren't going to ask you to do something with them that is bad. People that care about you aren't going to put you around an environment that they're doing bad things.
Well, thank you for your time. That was fantastic advice for the young folks. And do you mind if anybody contacts you on JPay?
No, I don't.
Okay, and what is your contact information for JPay?
Matthew Durham, that's Matthew. My last name Durham, Durham, and my DOC number is 873218.
And this is the Washington Department of Corrections, correct?
Yes, it's Washington State Department of Corrections, and it's Washington Correction Center is where I'm at.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. And if there's anything else that you want to add later on, just let us know, and hopefully people will contact you and get the inside story on your life.
And I just thank you. I just want to thank everybody for their time and listening, and hopefully we can start building that bridge and to get people to understand both sides of the aisle of the criminal justice system.
Okay, there you have it. That was my phone interview. And, we only have limited time on a telephone. And so fortunately, we were able to get through a large part of the interview, get some information out. And as you heard, he does have quite a bit of advice, based on his personal experiences. He has been in prison for quite some time. And he's not one to sit around and say that the system did him wrong and that he should be exonerated from everything. He knows he made a mistake, and he's doing what he can to deal with that. And when we make mistakes, it's not necessarily the mistake that we make, it's just how we deal with it. We need to learn from it, we need to move on, and we need to help others to avoid making the same mistakes, or at least learn that when they do make a mistake, there is a chance to recover. And we also got to learn that when people do make mistakes for whatever reason, we shouldn't hold that over them for the rest of their life. He's doing his time, and once he walks out those doors, we shouldn't look back and constantly remind them of that. Even throwing the word former in it, former inmate, former felon, former prisoner. These things just kind of lock him into the past. He was caught, he was tried, he was convicted, and he was sentenced, and his time served. We should put that behind us. And he feels bad about the victims as well. And this was a terrible crime that he was involved with. But I guess the most hurtful event was when the family had to find out all the details. And for them, it's the hardest to deal with this. Anybody who's a victim of a crime such as this, where they lose a loved one, it has a deep, deep, lasting effect, and you're not going to forget it. It's not going to be wiped away. It's just that we got to understand that when the system works and the person receives their just rewards, we need to accept that and move on. I think the worst thing that we could possibly go through is if somebody commits a murder and they're running around out there even today, or they're continuing to murder, like those serial killers, and we don't know where they are, what they're doing, and we can go on for years. That's what we need to watch out for. And we can avoid that by coming together as a community, as working to find the faults in our system and to help guide people so that they don't feel that crime is the way they have to go. And I'm a big opponent of long sentences. I don't think a 50-year sentence is going to make that big a difference for somebody who can be changed and come to terms and become a better person within just a few years. We need to look at each individual case and find out the exact sentence. And in this particular case, there are some things that could have been done right. And he's willing to work with folks to prevent it from happening again. Our ultimate goal is not necessarily to lock everybody up, our goal is to prevent crime, to give people the resources to find alternate ways of resolving their issues or dealing with things that might want them to turn to crime. And so it takes quite a bit of work, but I think it's cheaper than sending people to prison, and I think it's more effective because there's a lot of people that go to prison, come out, and then they just go right back because there's just no support out there, and it's hard for us to accept folks getting out of prison because we want to hold that over them. And I think we've got quite a bit of work to do there, but we can do it. We can help these folks out. And once he gets back out there, let's work with him. So if you want to contact him, want to get some questions answered, or if you want to make some comments, open up a dialogue, let's work with him and see what we can do to help maybe somebody that's close to us that's finding some trouble coping with stuff. And this is what we do. We're a big community. So thanks for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.